Test. Oh, that's what I'm saying. Hey. All right, I got it. Hang on. All right. Let me see. Fuck it. I think it'll work. I'm just trying to. I'm being like ambitious. See, there it is. It'll come up once it's. That'll be delayed, but we'll see the questions. All right, you want to go live? Go live. Fuck it. I'm good. I'm cool. Now you need a minute. The talent doesn't wait. About those. Oh wow, wow, wow!
Hey, we're professionals here.
That was fucking. That was so fucking bootleg. It wasn't even funny. Anyway, I guess we're live now. To everybody out there, thanks for the countdown cue. That was amazing. I saw one finger. It was like a sausage hanging in a meat window. So,
hey, I went to school, man.
I can read. That says Adidas. So, we are live. I want to give a special thanks to KVAR, special thanks to Arsenal and Fime. And if you get a chance, check out kvar.com. Head over to kvar.com for anything and everything, shooting, hunting, fishing, you name it, everything you can think of. I feel like I hear some echo somewhere. Do we have echo somewhere? Somewhere. Anyway, so I want to give a special shout out. We have an awesome guest in studio. It could be this frickin' iPad throwing off the vibe here. Let me just kill. Yeah, it's the iPad. I'll kill it.
Found.
So I want to give a special shout out, okay, to a guest we have in studio. And everybody knows I like doing things that have so much appeal and cross promotion. And this guest comes from Australia. She not only is a badass, but she's competed, trained in a bunch of different disciplines. She's now doing some MMA stuff, some fighting stuff, some jiu-jitsu. She came from the LFL via Australia. So she's got all kinds of cool stories. We're going to talk about gun laws in Australia. We're going to talk about everything. We're going to get her on the range. She's checked out the guns. She's visited the facility. She's seen everything. She spent some time with us. TAI EMERY.
G'day, everybody. Thanks for having me on, mate. This is good. Seeing your natural habitat.
Seeing the natural habitat. So we're going to get into your story a little bit. It's really a cool one. You ran it by me, and I remember we were kind of shooting the shit a little on the mats and hanging out and talking, and I was like, this would be a really, really cool. You got into kind of self-defense and fighting and everything else. How? Where does it all begin, and how does it start for you?
I think the seed was planted by Misha Tate. I did always like training wrestling and training boxing for my football days. I liked having fast hands for football. I was a defense player. And I liked the wrestling aspect just because we weren't allowed to go full contact during football training. So for me, I was just like, what? I got to go get some hands-on meat, mate.
Wait a minute. Time out. Talk about this football thing. Get closer to the mic. Get closer to the mic. Fill us all in on...
My bad.
I know... get real close, but talk to us about this football thing. How does this football thing happen?
The football thing happened just by one of my mates taking me down. She was playing in the LFL. The season was about to start, I think, in 6 to 8 weeks, and girls were dropping like flies, just getting injured on the paddock, and she took me down. And honestly, as soon as they put the ball in my hand and I ran through, wind was literally flying in your hair in the nighttime sky, I just thought, yep, this is for me. Something's missing, and this is what was it.
The LFL's a little crazy. Q, do you have a clip? It's a little bit of a crazy thing. And here's a clip coming up. It's pretty legit. I mean, these chicks are beating the shit out of each other. And who signs up for this? Because it's not for the money.
Well, there is no money.
I mean, are they like dangling? Are they dangling like modeling contracts in front of you guys, or what's?
They might be now. Things might have changed in the last year.
And that's you right there.
That one's not me. That's Atlanta.
That's Atlanta
Steam.
That's Atlanta Sting.
I've trained with Atlanta
Q,
Steam.
you pulled up Atlanta just to fuck with me.
They don't all look like TAI, okay? Jesus, John. I mean, come on.
There's some biggins there. What's going on? What's going on?
Well, it's a one-size-fits-all uniform, and honestly, you just start pulling in body shapes towards like what position they're playing. So most of these girls would be offensive linemen, or they'd be the middle linebacker and linebackers.
Some of them might just be plain offensive. You just never know. So,
damn it, John, you took my line. That was my line.
I know. So I watched the clip, and it's pretty legit. So you get kind of
legit. It's think of that pretty to crazy scale. That exists.
So
in the LFL.
How so you do the LFL thing. You're competing in that, and that's pretty. You got to be a different kind of lady to be doing that.
Honestly, the uniform itself just brings a different person. You're going to have someone who feels more comfortable out there in a full kit gear. You can't go out and play confidently in a almost lingerie, like it's a bikini. It's a fitted sports suit, 2-piece. And you have to have confidence going out on the field and being able to play that. So knowing that is that side, it's going to bring a different sort of character to the game. And that's what makes the game, is the uniform, because it brings these crazies together.
And you guys are going full go.
Oh, yeah, it is real. It's honestly, it's roller derby, it's Miss America, it's UFC, it's everything rolled into one. But we're still trying to play football and then deal with like someone kneeing you on the ground while you're shoved between the walls. When you're playing on the indoor field, you're like stuck between the foam, and someone will just come and drop a rib, and you think, what the fucking fuck?
Yeah, I'm watching the clip. It's pretty crazy. So you told me that story, and you were there for not for a minute. You were there for a few years.
I was there for a few years. I played my first season in Australia, and then come over to America. I ended up playing for Las Vegas. Then I played in Guatemala in the All-Star team, and then went to LA. And then after LA, that's when I was done after that. That's when, everything else, the seeds had been planted from, Misha Tate and Robert Follis, and I really fell in love with MMA.
So you come across, you network a little bit, you come across Misha. And Misha says what that flicks the switch for you to now, stop doing it with pads and start doing it with none?
She took me to the Brisbane UFC, and she's like, do you want to come back? And I've got interviews going on, just see how everything works out. I thought, oh, cool, that'll be a nice experience. It's exactly the same as LFL behind the scenes, like green screens, interviews, if that makes sense. Anyway, we go to sit down to eat, and I can feel her sort of presence, and I'm like, righto, mate, what steak knives are you selling? Get on with it. What do you want? She just said, I feel like you'll find a love that you've been missing, and I know you've got the personality and the drive and the dedication to do something in this sport. She's like, you're a fighter, and you just don't know it. So it took a little bit longer because I love football. I've played football my whole life. Football. I love you. I love football. I love everything about it. It's so aggressive. It's savage. It's primal. It's, it's like you're on the front line with your mates right beside you. And, that camaraderie and intensity is one of its own.
So before we get to the fighting, I'm going to go forward. You spent some time in Australia, and you do, obviously, the accent's a giveaway.
The accent.
So, and I know something about accents. So, you spend some time in Australia. What is it like, the gun laws and everything? Because I know We talked about shooting, and we're going to do some of that. How fucked up is it in Australia?
We don't have. It's so strange coming over here. It's almost shocking the first time
the Wild
seeing.
West.
Yeah, well, someone's got a gun like sitting in their glove box. We don't have anything like that. You know, you can't just have guns open. You can't be walking with guns. You need to have a permit. You need to be shooting at the range and have your hours up and your memberships, or you have to have an X amount of property and land.
So it's almost impossible.
They make it really difficult.
But you can hunt.
You can hunt.
And you've done some of that.
Yeah, I've done some of that. I've done boar hunting up in North Queensland.
What is that like?
Dude,
Because when I think of
these
Australia,
beasts are huge.
I'm thinking of Crocodile Dundee. Like you go out there and you have like a knife, and I can hear you guys in the studio bullshitting. So you so you go out and like you're wearing clothes, right?
Of course, I'm wearing clothes while hunting.
Okay, because I'm assuming like you have like a loincloth on and you go out there with like a spear and you keep what you kill, but it's legitimate hunting.
Yeah, it's legitimate hunting. Obviously, there's different ways. The people that use their dogs, and if they want to stick them, there's people who do want to go out there and have guns, whether that's legal or illegal. It's happening. But no, these boars are a couple of fuck, mate. They're like wild beasts. They literally, the hair on them is this long. They're sitting up this big. Most of the time we'd be sticking them with like a 4-hour walk just to stay downwind so they can't get scent of you. I had a lot of good memories like doing that sort of stuff back home.
What's your weapon of choice out there, Ty?
We would just stick them with a knife.
Wow. Up
with the
close
group
and
that I
personal.
was with. Yeah. Well, it's a easier kill straight to the heart. It's a lot more humane than
Do you keep the skulls?
No, I don't keep the skulls.
I have mine.
I think they smell. I think they smell too much. I don't even want to eat wild boar. I guess if I had to, of course, slather up.
You can't eat all of
Shucker
them.
on the barbie, I'll eat it, but.
You can't eat all of them. Some of them, you know, it depends on I think it's the smell, or Crispy was explaining it. I mean, I've only hunted them. It depends. Yeah, it depends on the smell of the meat and
The
stuff.
blood, he
The
said.
blood,
The blood.
So, you do this hunting in Australia now. Do the gun laws now, after being here, do the gun laws and kind of the structure there, the fear mentality, does that piss you off?
The fear mentality of guns.
Yeah.
I think that it's more the media. I think some want to protect themselves, and they're definitely farmers and people who are from more rural Australia. They kind of, they have a different view on their property and on protection. But there is always a lot of Australians who believe they feel safer without everybody having guns. It's always mixed. It's just like anywhere, you don't know what people are going to want. But it is really hard to have them. And, guns make people feel really uncomfortable in Australia, like really uncomfortable.
You think it's just media driven?
I think everything's media driven. Whoever has the money behind media and is pushing that, I guess, their perception and what they want people to kind of, go down their own rabbit hole of thought. They can definitely control people through all media aspects.
So you come to the United States, it's the Wild West, and you mentioned you've got to shoot and hang out and get some shooting time, get some range time. You must think it's pretty wild.
As soon as I got off the plane, within the first week, I went into a gun store because I was like, hell yeah, I'm going to get me a gun. Yeehaw! I went in there and they're like, no, your visa doesn't allow you to do this. You need to be an American citizen. I was just like, oh.
Damn.
My heart. My heart just got ripped out. I've shot some rifles over here, AK-47s, Glock 45s. Obviously, they were friends and I didn't own them, so... But it's been good. They're just they're everywhere. Everyone's allowed to do whatever they want here.
It's a start. So you spend some time here, and then, again, coming back to Misha, you get into the fighting.
Yeah. Honestly, I think I'm able to express myself so much more and fully now that I'm doing MMA. I feel like it helps you to kind of just heal yourself internally through violence, peaceful violence that you find on your own sort of journey. It's been the best thing that I've ever done. I'm literally living like a gypsy athlete and just, floating where, I guess coaches are or where the journey sort of takes me. But it's just been the best thing. I've met the best people along the way. And, there's so many different codes. I love boxing, wrestling and jiu-jitsu. So between that, it kind of suits my personality, especially coming from football. And I tend to just gravitate towards coaches, training partners and environments that match myself, that are going to bring out the best of myself,
Yeah, I mean, I understand completely. I got into it from a different path. So, like, for me, you guys know all the fighters and all the, like, I'm friends with a lot of the fighters. I'm going to show a clip of you, mixing it up, working the bag. And, I got into it just more from the jiu-jitsu side, and I just enjoy the discipline of jiu-jitsu and getting a train. So for me, it's more about the workout and stuff like that. So, like, these people come on the mats, and I've never been a starstruck guy. I get to meet them, hang out with them. I'm going back and forth now with Ben Saunders. I'm going to have Ben on. Colby Covington's obviously a friend, and Kat Zingano's a friend of mine. So, I respect it. I don't know enough about it. I'm just kind of like, hey, I like to do jiu-jitsu. I like to roll. I like to practice. But, striking and doing all that stuff, obviously down in Miami, I got a chance to train with Gregory Choplin, who Colby trains with. But, it's one of those things that I enjoy the discipline of the day in and day out of getting up at 4 a.m., hitting the gym, training, staying in shape, and the conditioning that comes with it. I think the conditioning that comes from MMA or training is second to none. And I just enjoy the mental conditioning that it puts you through. Like you were mentioning, kind of beating yourself up internally. I say this to everybody. There's nothing more humbling, and I don't like to get into a jiu-jitsu preach, but there's nothing more humbling than getting out there and realizing you don't know shit.
Yeah, you don't know shit.
And you go from the LFL.
I think once you realize you don't know shit, you start learning more shit.
Yeah.
And then the shit just continues because there's always shit to learn.
There's always shit to learn. So it's always humbling, and this is, what I like to talk about on the podcast, to go from being someone who was accomplished in their sport at the LFL level in fitness, and now you go into the fighting, and you're kind of like, the first couple months are the worst.
Oh my gosh, I've never been so hurt physically in my life.
And
just coming
emotionally.
Back and you do. There'd be days where I'm like, I don't even know what that was about, but obviously it needed to come out.
And you have to have a good, what I say, friend structure or coaching structure, because like I explain it to people, it's like life. It's like business. You're going to fail 9 times before you have that one success. So it's the same thing in fighting and in jiu-jitsu. There are days you leave the mat and you're like, damn, I feel really good about where I'm at.
Yeah.
And then there are days you leave and you're like, I don't know shit. And I got my ass handed to me, and it's all the luck of the draw, the luck of the rolls, and just kind of where you're at. So, it's a great experience. I got into it. I have a bunch of friends that kind of pushed me into the jiu-jitsu side, which I was excited about. But it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's every day.
And how many fights have you had so far?
I've only had one on paper, one
Okay.
on fight, then surgery, and then back from surgery.
Okay. And any, are you planning on doing more points-based matches, or you want to go straight into the MMA side?
I really just want to do MMA. I like doing grappling tournaments and jiu-jitsu tournaments. I think that's awesome to stay active. But right now, obviously, my focus has just been getting back and getting my knee back to 100%. Once that's kind of given the clear, I really just want to have a few MMA fights lined up and just to get that experience. I found it a lot easier compared to maybe someone else who, since I did have, already the adrenaline of playing women's, in the LFL. I'm so used to having lights, cameras, action right in front of my face and doing interviews and green screens. And, that takes a lot out of someone, and having to prepare them, especially as they're going in to do something that's meant to just be a showcase of like your own athletic ability. But that isn't. You got to be the whole kit and caboodle now.
Yeah, you got to. There's been, one thing I've studied a ton. There's been a whole evolution in MMA. So there was a time when strikers dominated. There was a time when jiu-jitsu, straight up jiu-jitsu dominated. Obviously, through the Gracies, everybody knows the story. And then, you saw, Randy Couture come in with the dirty boxing and stuff like that. Now you're seeing some of the most well-rounded players out there on the mat. Like they have, we've seen wrestling dominate a little bit up until Ben got his ass handed to him.
Oh my gosh.
So we've seen a little bit of everything kind of dominate. So you really have to be well-rounded. You can't be just a jiu-jitsu player, just a judo player. You have to have a little bit of everything. Now you're seeing people, it's a mix of belt structure. You're seeing people that are purple belts or brown belts or black belts in jiu-jitsu.
You're just seeing people show how they can adapt it to win out there on the mat. It's you versus someone else, so it's whatever's going to kind of come out. I think you just need to train. Well, everyone has their own theories, but I like to just train, technique, and then in the moment, give it up to whatever else is, what's meant to be automatic and what's meant to be so primal. I think if you're letting go in that state, you know, don't they call it the flow state? But you're able to just allow your body to do what it wants to naturally do, and that should be to fight and win and survive.
Yeah, the best rollers. I mean, you know, I'm a dead player anyway, but the best people to fight with or roll with are the ones that you're not holding back.
Yeah.
But you're not going 1,000. You're not being frantic is probably the best way for me to put
you're
it.
just being calm. It's good. And just a little bit of pressure. I think you need to have that pressure, or else what are we doing?
Yeah, you can't be playing patty cake out there.
No.
But at the same time, you're not out to hurt people. People got to go to work in the morning. Not everybody's. The interesting thing about Vegas.
You're not getting paid at open
Yeah,
mat.
the interesting thing about Vegas, which is way different. I came from a straight blast in Montana. Is the level of competition is fucking
so good.
nuts. I
It
was
is so
talking
good
about
here.
that with somebody else. The level is just insane because you can be on the mat, and I'm not, you know, to people who follow MMA or jiu-jitsu or anything like that, you might have one black belt, you might have a couple purple belts.
Yeah.
You go on our mats, any given night, there can be 3-4 black belts on the mat.
World champions.
Yeah, 4 or 5 purple belts. I mean, in the last few weeks, and we've been jaded because we've had the MMA Super Show here and we've had fights here, so the mats have been stacked.
Yeah.
I mean, literally stacked. I mean,
It was swamped.
you walk in one night, you have 4 or 5 black belts. You're like, you got to be shitting me, you know? And it's like, and you know who they are. That's the crazy thing. You're kind of like, whoa, like, you know, like I said the other night, I walked in and I'll pick on him. And, you know, I was like, oh shit, that's Ben Saunders. Like, Jesus Christ, you know, and you know, at any point in time, he can beat you, but it's just fun to kind of see how he rolls, how he approaches his game, and how he does things. It's a lot of fun at 10th Planet right now. I mean, what Casey's building there and the culture.
He has the best energy and best vibe. He's so welcoming and open and
Oh
relaxed.
my God.
Calms you like that.
I couldn't imagine, you know, when I came here, that was one of the draws. I was like, I'm really excited to go to a 10th Planet because it's really an innovative style. It's really forward thinking, and Coach Casey does a great job of kind of pushing that. So you get some time here in Vegas to train, and obviously, you know, and then you go to Atlanta, which Atlanta has great competition too. There's a lot of great.
I've got a really good boxing coach up there, Christian Steele. It's walking distance from the gyms that I work out of with Team Octopus, and a lot of the ATT guys come over there, and that's where I've come from, is American Top Team.
Yeah, ATT dominates that Florida to Georgia belt, but there's also a really good couple 10th Planets there in that space. So, you know, I think it's Sean Applegate that's out there.
Yeah,
and then,
that's the name Burchak gave me. Yep.
And then who goes there is one of his good friends is Chris Woomer, who's Veil Solutions. I mentioned to you about Chris, is I believe a blue belt there now. He might even be a purple belt. I'm not 100%. Hi, Chris. And you know, Veil, he does a lot of shooting, a lot of training. So Chris is awesome. When I wear one of my rash guards, it's his. But so many good players there, and I believe that's where Jiu-Jitsu Cop lives too. He's out in Georgia.
Jiu-Jitsu Cop.
Yeah, he's
This
awesome.
is new. Is this a new hashtag trending?
No,
thing
it's
kids
he's
are
on
doing?
IG.
He's an
He's an IG or an Instagrammer. So the community is just so great. But now, you know, you kind of messed around a little bit with Firearms. You're doing some shooting. You're hanging out.
Ooh.
And how do you feel about women getting into the sport? Because I'm noticing more and more women getting into MMA and self-defense and seeing that as being one of the largest growing segments. I mean, and you guys are so welcoming. Like with the guys, it's always like a little bit more of a stare, like, who's this dude? You know? And with the women, what I've noticed, especially, you know, because Casey has Abby there, his daughter, it's very welcoming.
Yeah,
They're
it
very
is.
like, oh, come on, you know, let's roll. And it's like, and everybody's so, you know.
Well, they kind of understand everyone's their own little alien floating around with their own experiences, and, you know, they're so chill about it. So, of course, they're so welcoming.
I have noticed, which is different than when I was at SBG, I have noticed this. The women at 10th Planet tend to stick to rolling with the women. They don't roll a lot with the dudes as much. Is that something like, do you look at it like, hey, I need to get practice with more of like a defense thing? Like I need to roll with somebody like Q size or my size? Or do you feel like I'm just going to stick to the women because I want to train how I'm going to be in a fight?
I like training with the women because it's a completely different feel. There's different anchoring points. We just move different. We're creative in different sort of ways, and I think that kind of plays off. Whatever's going in the mind is all the way, you know, coming out through your movements. I like going with guys, though, just so that I can get a little bit more aggression out. I don't know why. I just
You can let loose a little more.
I can let loose
yeah.
and not be like, oh, I'm not going to break him.
Yeah.
Because, well, you got.
I know Kat trains with a lot of men, and she likes the idea of that translation going from the guys who maybe
Well, they school you, so
yeah.
you
well.
know.
I mean, you'll find in time that you'll be able to beat a lot of the guys, especially if you're training as much as you are and as consistently as you are. And that'll come. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Hey, John, we got somebody in the chat want to see you get into MMA, man.
Frank, I think I'm a little old for that. I haven't ruled out doing maybe a tournament or something. I haven't ruled that out. Maybe there'd be like a blue belt tournament or something. I don't know. I haven't, MMA, it's tough because
You have to do practice of,
yeah, and
I
don't want to say I'm so old that I missed the window. I think guys like Joe Rogan just missed it. I mean, I think Joe's in his 40s, so he kind of just missed that window of time. I think once you hit for women, it's a little different, and this is my take on it. The women are just starting to see their star really rise in MMA. I think Ronda set the stage, and that was only, don't forget, what was Ronda 5 years ago? She was just dominating, dominating the scene. So now you can be like, I think, Kat's in her mid to late 30s, so you can dominate at 35, 36, 37 years old.
Hormonally, as women, you're in your prime in your 30s.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're the strongest
No,
you'll
I agree
ever
with
be.
With the
if you've done
guys, I feel like once you hit that 36, 37, 38, you start to get to the back end where I'll be real with you guys. Like I go on the mats and the guys that are equal belt, but equal size and equal belt, and they are a little younger than me. They're just quicker and they have more control of their body. It's just a lot more work.
They probably have more functional movement.
Yeah, much more functional. So, but yeah, I mean, I haven't ruled it out. I mean, I appreciate that, Frank, you saying I'm in my prime, but I like to think, I have a mounting number of injuries from years of powerlifting and everything else. My body, it just doesn't bend certain ways, which is not good for jiu-jitsu. So, I will say this, I think everybody would agree that's rolled me. I'm a tough tap, just because you can have a hard time getting things like triangles on me, and arm bars are tough because I can just roll into them and stack. It's just other than like Vinny or Ben or certain guys that I've rolled with that have just that ability, it does get tough. But I haven't ruled it out.
You gotta have one, mate. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, no, I would definitely haven't ruled it out, but we'll see where it goes, especially here because now 10th Planet, it's they encourage a lot of that, and a lot of the belting step ups and everything encourages a lot of competing. So it may bring something out of me that maybe I didn't know was there. So I think between the shooting and everything else, though, Frank, my plate's pretty full. But you got to come in here and check out some of our guns and see, kind of a manufacturer, and we make the stuff on the spot. What do you think? What do you think of Arsenal and KVAR after checking out some of the AKs and shotguns?
It's so nice. It's such a neat design, and I guess it was. I thought it was going to be heavier, but at the same time, I thought it was going to be lighter.
But you work out.
I do work out.
You work out.
I've got a pop ribbed out, mate.
Oh,
trying to lift it.
So, you get a chance to get your hands on some of the AKs, and you're going to shoot some of them. Obviously, AR-15s have become like the America's black gun. AKs though are a lot of fun, and they're just so much fun to shoot and to plink with. And handguns, you're drawn right away to the Rex. It's a lot of fun. I mean, I liked
that Delta too.
Yeah, of course. It's a badass setup we have here, and I'm glad to have you in. And it's been an awesome time. Do you think shooting is something you'll get more and more into as time goes on?
I already know that it is. I love shooting rifles back home in Australia. Obviously, I could only shoot them out on the property. I've loved guns since forever. That's why I was so excited to come to America and get my gun.
Yeah, people say that it's funny. Q, I know you've had a lot of people through here in your time, and we've all seen it in this business. When people come here from overseas, they always say the same thing. They're like, it's like the Wild West.
It is.
That's like the impression that they get.
Yeah, it really is amazing. Like, you should have saw her eyes light up when we walked in the room and she had the AK in her hand. It's like, oh, I'm shooting everything.
Because it's, as bad as this sounds, it's we take for granted, how great the Second Amendment is and how awesome it is to have that right to bear arms.
Well, how are you ever going to know what it's like to not have it since you get everything you want?
Not in every state, but you're lucky because you're split between two awesome states, Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, and Nevada. So
it's a good balance.
And being in Las Vegas, Nevada. So you're split between two awesome places for gun ownership. Thank God for that. Knock on wood. But so it's one of those things that I think you would do very well in, and I think you would enjoy it. But it comes down to this. It's like people ask me all the time, hey, Dave asks me all the time, hey, you want to go shoot archery or whatever? It's layering another thing, another self-defense or defense thing on top of what you already have going on.
I just feel like it's something that's going to take concentration, meditation, and breathing,
Oh, breathing's everything.
It's kind of like fishing. It's the same sort of, I guess, just sit and focus. That's what I feel like you can get from it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head. It's a lot of concentration. It's a lot of focus. But you can learn the thing with shooting, just like fighting, it's a perishable skill. So you can develop a good shooting game relatively quickly. By that, I mean 5-10 yards self-defense. Within a few classes, you can be pretty dialed in and be pretty comfortable around a firearm.
Yeah.
It's when you get to that point of,
I just think you should know how to protect yourself in all ways. And obviously now I'm in a country that is allowed guns and the accessibility is there. So why shouldn't I?
well, that's well said.
Like shit can go down one day and I'd rather be like, oh yeah, I prepared myself for this.
Is there any fear of that in Australia? Like now that nobody's allowed to have guns, is there?
Amongst the normal folk, us peasant folk, yeah, of course they do, because we know that we're not unarmed. All it takes is for people who are armed to come in. It's not a prep.
Obviously,
really
we're super paranoid about that here, and like Q will be pulling up every gun law or every change or everything that happens. Like, you see what they're doing? They're taking away.
They're coming for us, man. They're coming for us.
They will never take away your guns, ever, America. Never.
Yeah,
never.
We hope. You say that, and then we're one Democrat away from that happening, but we hope not. So, it's one of those things that here, because we have the structure that we have, having the state laws and having the federal laws, so we have laws at the state level that prohibit certain things. You haven't been affected by that because you've been in, obviously, awesome states.
Yeah.
We have some states that they don't allow everything, and they don't allow everybody to carry, and they don't allow, like, you go to California, it's an act of God to be able to carry a handgun. It's an act of God to be able to have a normal working rifle without 17 switches on it. So,
well, what about even just with the loading, like the stuff that you've got in your car that you're keeping it all in? Can't you load it in that? Whoops.
She's telling all the
for the
secrets,
record, there's nothing in my car. No. No, I mean, look, I obviously having the vaults and the big shout out to Truck Vault, shameless plug. Having the vaults and everything grants me a certain amount of safety in being able to lock everything down. But yeah, I mean, no, you're absolutely right. I have the luxury of having access to that type of stuff, so where I can transport, carry, and have different things to protect not only myself but also anybody from getting into the stuff. But the key thing in every state is knowing the state laws state by state and where you travel and whatever you take, because literally people in the United States can get arrested just getting off the plane with a handgun. It's insane, yeah. So it just depends on the state. New York is a nightmare. California is a nightmare. I'm trying to think where else. I try to stay. Jersey's a nightmare.
Pretty much anywhere on the East Coast.
It's not so bad.
So is this new then? So they've changed.
It's not new. So the last 25 years, there's been kind of an assault on all things firearms in the United States and certain states. And the Democrats, so we have Democrats and Republicans here. The Democrats have done a good job making the firearms a very easy political football that they're able to kind of pass back and forth, because it's really easy for them to stand up and say, it's the guns and we need to ban the guns and we need to stop the guns. It's been a very easy conversation with them, because who's going to argue with that besides people that can come off as radicals? But what the Republicans have done and what the right has done, the right wing of the government, they've done a great job saying it's not the guns. Guns don't kill people. people do.
Duh.
And if you do your proper research and you actually study this stuff and you look at what kills people, alcohol, drugs, most of your gun deaths are murder-suicides, so people who are going to take their life. And anywhere else you go in the country that has very strict gun laws, Chicago is a prime example, the murder rate is through the roof there. And if you go overseas to like London, the violent crimes are through the roof because they have such strict gun laws that the crimes that are committed, I mean, people get like bludgeoned with scissors and like, it's just crazy when you read some of the violent crimes. Like they're talking about, what is it, banning knives in Paris or something? They want to ban anything sharp. I mean, you can't even have a butter knife at this point.
Look, when there's a will, there's a way, whether there's a gun or a knife or a chair.
Exactly. Very smart, Ty.
Amen, Ty. So I think, you know, for the most part, seeing you come here and kind of immerse yourself into the culture and give us your feedback on what you see in Australia, it's really encouraging to see that thought process. I hope, I mean, we all hope, right, that it changes, that we stay pro-gun forever. I hope that it would change in Australia, but I don't think that it will anytime soon.
It definitely won't.
It definitely won't.
I'm pretty sure they shot up a heap of people in like Tasmania or something like that, and then not long after that, they took all the guns away.
Yeah, I heard
was
that.
some-
Is there a clip on? Is there a Google Australia and gun laws Q? See what comes up. I know that there was news on that. They just recently did like a super strict ban in the last like 2 years where it was like they confiscated stuff. That confiscation scares the shit out of me. I mean, if it goes that way here, it's going to be very ugly. So
They won't get-
very,
Everyone
very,
just be burying everything.
yeah. So much fun. It's just one of those topics of conversation you can talk about for hours. I mean, we could go on and on about gun laws, but having the ability to come here, to train how you want, fight, do everything that you enjoy, you have to love it. I imagine you want to stay.
Yeah, I want to stay. Right now, I got a 5-year visa for my potential in sport, so I'm here till March 2022. That's a decent amount of years to try and figure it out.
Yeah, and you're in Vegas, so you could just do a shotgun wedding down at like the
That will be completely real if ever happened in the future.
You know, and you can just do a shotgun wedding down at like the MGM Grand or something. I don't know, one of these places like the Chapel of you know, you can have like Elvis.
love.
Yeah, you can have like
Of
Elvis
course.
marry you, and then there you go. So you could stay forever. But going through that process, we were talking about it. It's one of those things that they check and they'll come.
Everything.
Yeah, you actually have to live with the person. You
Yeah,
know,
of course.
Yeah, it's like a.
You can't just fake something like that.
It has to be like the real thing.
It's crazy, John. I did a quick deep dive on it, and yeah, you're
What'd you
right,
find?
Ty. It was '96 with the massacre.
Yep.
But it's crazy, John. You can speak more on this, Ty. It's like you got to be licensed. The guns have to be registered, and you have to prove a reason that you have the gun and tell them why.
And you need to be completely active all the time. Like you need to be always needing to be using it. Stay active.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's crazy. There you go. So, anyway, fuck Australia. You know,
I'm like, oh shit.
Ty's like, wait, I still have to go there sometimes.
fuck it. So,
Blood.
yeah, she's like, I have to go back there.
Don't even care.
Dual citizenship.
Dual citizenship. So, you're gonna be here for a while.
Yeah, I'm here for a
What's
while.
your goal?
Here to stay.
What's
Get
your
used to
goal in
it.
MMA?
Right now, at the start, there really wasn't a goal. I just knew that it was something that I wanted to do. But like with anything, when I want to do something, I definitely, I want to go the whole way and I want to take it to the top. I've got a lot of potential, and I think if you love something and you're obsessed with it, you can just adapt and take everything on so much faster than someone that's just kind of, I guess, going through the motions. Whether that's UFC or whether that's Bellator or whether that's just local cards where I'm saving the day to myself. The goal is just to go big or go home. and just see where it goes.
I think I think
everything's blessed in luck anyway. So I think as long as you've got sort of the dream, the rest of the will and the way is kind of just like falls into place. So I kind of just know the image that I have of myself and who I want to become through the development of this sport. And I think that's more important than, you know, kind of, I guess, whatever, everything else. Everything else is just going to be a bonus. So, you know.
No, that's legit. I mean, that's definitely legit right there. Everything's blessed in luck. I like that. Have you thought at all about a plan B? You know, like, do you see? This is a good question for you. Do you see yourself like a year from now, maybe 2 years from now? Let's say it's not going the way you want it to. You're like, okay, I'll be an accountant. Like, where does it go from here?
Well, I go back to being an electrician and thermographer. I was one of the first female electrical contractors in Australia. Girl power. And, ended up going into thermal technician. So my backup plan's pretty good.
It sounds it.
She's smart.
Yeah, we
backup plan.
We talked about this.
Jeez.
So I want.
Set.
So I mean, you know, we talked about this the other day. You know, do you see sometimes, and I know this is common in fitness, and we see it a million times. Sometimes in fighting, people don't have that backup plan. Do you think that's a huge mistake?
I think everybody has a different way. Like maybe for them mentally, that's something where it's more do or die. So that makes them more of a mongrel or more of a heartfelt sort of fighter. That might work for them. That might not. I think it just comes down to whatever they're sort of meant to be being pulled by.
Yeah, I think my plan B was to just host podcasts forever. I think that was the way it was going to be for me.
I could love to talk to people forever.
Forever.
I was going to be in Prince's in Prince's band.
I know.
That didn't work out for me.
He sings a mean Purple Rain. So, yeah, I mean, I see that a lot in fighting. Like, I'm on the mats, and I pay attention to a lot of the youngsters and the guys coming up. And, you know, sometimes I'm like, you know, like Casey talks about this. Like, you know, do you think about, like, kind of life beyond the mats or what the plan is? And whether that's to own a gym or be a coach. I think everybody in some way, shape, or form should have some level of, like, hey, this is what I would transition into. This is what I would look at. I think recognizing your own mortality is a good thing. And that's something, you know, I just did talking to Frank. It's kind of like, you know, I think having some acknowledgement of that, like, look, I want to pursue this. I want to push this as hard as I can for as long as I can.
Yeah.
But the reality is, if it doesn't work out and I'm sitting here 2 years from now and I'm a purple belt or whatever I am, you know, maybe I'll open a school or maybe I'll do some teaching and coaching and something like that. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't think that's a defeatist approach at all. I think you should always be thinking with the end in mind.
Yeah.
And I don't think enough people do that. They just kind of think like, I'll go week to week with this and see where it goes. But I think, you know, having that small picture, medium picture, big picture is always a good thing. And I think the visa kind of forces you to do that a little bit too.
Yeah, well, it's giving me a timeline. So it's, you know, why not give it everything?
Give it 110% in your time and then see where it goes from there. And
Yeah,
I think
of course.
I think taking things like a year to 18 months at a time is kind of always a great approach, kind of reassess where you are and go from there. And, you know, I think you'll do that and I think you'll crush it. I think you'll do fine. So you're going to get ready to shoot some guns?
Oh, yeah.
So before we wrap, let me
Yes.
ask you a couple things I ask every guest, you know, kind of get into it with every guest. How do people find you, and what's the best way for folks to slide in the DM and tell me the craziest DM story you've ever encountered?
Oh, gosh.
I don't know if you could top the last. I don't know if she could top the last one, Q.
What was the last one?
That'd be pretty hard.
That'd be hard.
Was that someone getting peed on?
Yeah.
Bruh. Easiest way to find me is Instagram. That's at TAI_EMERY. It's just easy. It's easy.
There
It's
it is right
Instagram.
there. Yep.
It's Instagram, people. Sliding into my DMs. Oh, hell. Probably the worst one. I don't know. There's so many. And after a while, you just start feeling like all this weird, like, zombie energy where you're just like, ugh.
There's always creepy ones.
Look, for a long time, I was getting Asian penises sent to my DMs. The LFL must have been being broadcast overseas.
Ugh.
And I can tell from just like the look of the penises. So you're like,
Asian
they're playing they're playing our season in this country right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got Asian penises.
Because I had to change my name on everything. It was just a flock of Asian penises. And then the next time it was like, I don't know, Guatemalan penises. Is it Guatemalan? I don't know.
I don't know.
But, you know, so it's usually just I guess. Penis Chronicles.
That's pretty crazy.
But that's not even. Yeah, that's not even.
that's a
bad.
podcast
I've heard it.
name.
Yeah, I've
That's
heard it
just
all.
DM.
That's
That's a podcast name, John.
I've heard it all. Oh God.
The Penis Chronicles.
Penis Chronicles.
I still like our the other podcast name. We were tossing around podcast names for other shows, not for this one. This one's mine, but we were tossing around some crazy names, and one of them that came to mind was "Show Me on the Doll Where He Touched You," and look, needless to say, it didn't pass management's muster. It didn't stick.
They were like,
no. So
no.
So to reach out to you, DM is best. Do you have a website, email, anything?
Everything's from there. It's got the contact email as well, so that's just easier.
You got to get on YouTube. You need a podcast.
I need a podcast. Oh, the setup would be fun. That'd be all right.
You could
I
do
do
it right
know
out
a
of
lot
your
of people.
house. Yeah.
A lot of random people.
I still say, and I say this, Ty, you know, the businesses and the companies, and Q's heard me say this 100 times, and I would say this to Coach Casey. If somebody was smart, okay, I don't want to say somebody. If businesses were smart, they would all have a podcast.
Yeah, of course, because it's just like an Instagram page.
Exactly. So, like, I look at, like, even, like, 10th Planet down here. Like, why somebody doesn't just say, hey, Coach, you know,
I think it would be awesome, because then all the 10 planets are going to link in.
And you know.
Like a radio, just like high school radio stations.
A female fighting one, I cannot think, and I said this to Kat, and I'm going to say it on air. There is not a great female fighting one out there. And I think the first female that does start one and does it right, they crush it. They'll crush it. And no one, right now, I can't find anyone. I looked around, I did a ton of research into jiu-jitsu and everything else, other than like Henner and some of those guys. Nobody's crushing it on YouTube. I mean, Chewy Jiu-Jitsu is, you know, that kid. But, I mean, I think whoever does it and does it right, they're going to murder it.
Yeah.
They're going to murder it.
Well, the first of any of its kind is always going to murder it because you're the original.
That's, you know, another wise man. Tony actually says that all the time, Q. You know, it pays to be first. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So be first to the space and then grow it from there. And at the end of the day, I'm just a big believer of this. Nobody wants to, I mean, not nobody, people do, but I mean, people want to see the female side of things and see that approach and see kind of why females get into some of these extreme things that they do and what motivates them and drives them, because men have done it. You know, you have
most female backstories are all different too.
Yeah.
Like some of them are just like your Holly Holmes, like your athletes. There's some who are super damaged. Like
what draws them to
it?
You know,
what pulls them there? I think it calls you. You don't just all of a sudden go, "Oh, I'm gonna be a fighter." I think it's just like life events, and all of a sudden you're here and you just think, okay, this feels naughty and bad and really good.
And I love it.
Ty, I think we need to get you on the pod. We need to, come on. You start your own. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
I'm a huge fan of the space, and I think definitely it's. So when I look at social media, and it's one of the things we do here in the media department, I see such a thin space for especially female fighting, because it's all about the niche that you're in. And I think, you know, the right woman's going to come in and exploit the shit out of it. Because I've said it to Kat. I'm like, nobody's doing YouTube hardcore. Nobody's doing, you know what I mean? I could see Ben doing it, Askren, even though he just got his head pounded. Ben could crush it. Just because he has that extremeness about him, and there's certain guys, but I mean, a gal would murder it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think once she gets up there, and
Brah.
that's it. So slide into the DM is the best way to get in contact with you. Any plans for a website or, you know, anything like that?
Right now, all I want to do is train. I've found that even with my modeling, I've kind of taken, you know, a lot less work and kind of haven't even invested into that too much, just because training is just so important, you know, and then recovery is so important. So I don't know, life's focuses are just a little bit different right now. I'm not saying no.
No, that's good. I mean, it's,
you know, right now I just need a win and be the best version of myself, and you know, that's the plan.
So slide into the DM appropriately if you have questions. If you guys out there have
There's the email contact in there too. So, yeah, everyone has that.
Yeah, I have that. I have that, Q.
Yeah, everyone has that.
I have that. So,
of course you do.
So,
like, meh,
I don't know. I hope I have it. But so, okay.
Yeah.
Before we wrap,
Yeah,
you are going to be conquering the world. The next 18 months are going to be huge.
Slowly,
I think,
but surely, that is the plan.
I think
to
you're
take
going to
over
crush
the
it.
world.
We're excited to go to the range with you. We're excited to get you out there shooting some stuff, having some fun.
It's like Christmas. I'm so excited to shoot guns.
Oh, my God. So hopefully everybody out there, male, female, if you have questions for Ty, go ahead, slide into her DM, shoot her an email.
Yeah, if you want to teach me how to shoot guns, slide into the DM.
Questions about training, questions about anything, go check her out. She's got a really exciting page. She has an awesome story. I love the journey. It's very real. Going from the LFL to now fighting to potentially now doing more shooting and combat sports and stuff like that. I think she's going to crush it. I think the next 18 months are going to be awesome. I think a lot of women will potentially be following in your footsteps and kind of getting into this, and I hope that they do, because the sport really needs it. It's awesome to see the Amanda Nunez's, like you said, Holly
there's a new wave
Holm.
of female. There's there's a new power coming through, and I think they need those role models. They just need to know that someone else can do it to allow them to go, oh, that means I can too.
I absolutely agree with you. I love seeing it, and I love seeing the growth of the sport. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and seeing badass chicks out there doing some awesome stuff. So my hat's off to you. I loved having you in.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
It was great. It was great talking to you, and I think we've said it all. I think we kind of hit everything. Check out Ty. Go to @TAI _TAI_EMERY, and check out her page and follow what she's got going on. She's got a lot of cool stuff. She's posting a ton of stories. She's going to be shooting some guns shortly, so go check that out. And hopefully everybody gets a chance to tune in and pay attention and like and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later, and we are out.